Hello there. Welcome here. Welcome in. Come on in. Sit down. Take a big, deep breath. Allow yourself to settle. Let yourself arrive. Shake off anything that's out there that doesn't belong in here. Right? Take a deep breath. Right? Here's the deal. There's a story, right? A lot of capable people carry. And it usually sounds a lot like, if I could just get myself to be more disciplined, I was just more consistent. I've got to be more on top of things. And I want to interrupt that story here in a pretty direct way, right? Because most people here in this room don't have a discipline problem. What they have is a stability problem. Excuse me. And those two things, my friend, are not the same. You're likely responsible. You likely carry a lot. You likely already push harder than you talk about, which means consistency just hasn't held. And it's not because you don't care. It's because pressure has been doing the work that stability is meant to do. And pressure always costs more than people think. So let me be clear. Okay. About what this session is today. And of course what it's not. This session today is not about fixing you. You're not a project. This session today is not about motivation, and it's not about trying harder. Okay. It's about how your personal system is running, because systems don't respond to intention. Okay? They respond to design. And most approaches to consistency focus on behavior first. It's the do more, be better, follow through. But behavior is the last place consistency stabilizes. Ready for this? Consistency stabilizes when your nervous system knows what to expect, your energy isn't constantly spiking and crashing, your internal rules make sense, and recovery is built in. It's not something that you earn. And without that, consistency would require force. And force eventually collapses. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Not collapse as failure, but collapse as a predictable outcome of unstable systems. Because if your life only works when you're intense, right? Like, oh, I'm on it, right? That's not discipline. It's actually fragility. So this session is called Consistency Without Collapse, the Science of Precision Living, for a reason. It's because precision living is not about doing everything right. It's about doing what actually works for you repeatedly without draining yourself in the process. Precision doesn't add pressure. Precision removes the friction. So here's what I want you to hold as we move through this time together here today. Okay. You don't need more control. You don't need more motivation. And you definitely don't need another reset. You need a system that supports how you actually function. And that's what we're here building toward today, right? We're going to be structuring something for going forward. You should definitely know that this workshop sits above the work, that we're doing this quarter. January is all focusing on that predictability, and February is the deep dive into emotional capacity, and March is gonna bring it in and bring it home with the discipline as a personal devotion, not a punishment. Okay, so today is about how those pieces are going to lock together for you. So instead of asking, what do I need to fix? We ask, what needs to be redesigned so this can hold? And it's a very different conversation. Super quick note on how to be with this session, right? Like, be with us here. Because I want you all to be super present while you're listening, while you're absorbing, right? You don't need to take notes the entire time. Okay. You don't need to extract everything. Okay. I want you to listen for what organizes you. I want you to notice what lands ever so quiet. I want you to notice what makes something click, instead of just spark, right? Like that. Now it makes sense, right? So if something feels less dramatic than you expected, that's not a problem. That's usually where sustainability lives. Now, by the end of this session, you will understand why consistency breaks down even when effort is real. You're going to understand how pressure masquerades as discipline. You're going to understand what stability actually looks like in real life, and how to build a precision system that doesn't require you to overperform to maintain it. And I don't mean this from a conceptual space, right? Like this is not conceptually, right? Like, I don't know why that word doesn't want to come out today. This is operationally, okay? I'll go to a word I can pronounce today. Okay, so we're not chasing change. We're designing something that can be lived. Yeah? So let's talk about why consistency collapses and why it doesn't have to. Now, before we talk about how to build that consistency that's going to last, we have to get honest about why it keeps breaking down, right? Like, not morally, not motivationally, mechanically. Because collapse isn't mysterious, right? Like, it's not, right? It's a pattern. Most people don't lose consistency all at once. They lose it in stages. And it usually starts with like a surge, a reset, a recommitment, a moment where something finally feels clear enough to act on. The energy goes up, focus sharpens, effort increases. And for a while, things work. Yeah, that's the part people mistake for success. Let's look closer. What's actually driving that surge? What is it? It's pressure. It's urgency. It's fear of slipping back. It's a quiet internal rule that says this has to work this time. I've heard a lot of you say that. This didn't work. I got to completely revamp and rework, right? And so we're always saying to ourselves, like, this has to work this time. Pressure can be incredibly effective in the short term. That's why, right? Like that's why people keep using it. They put the pressure so they get some headway, right? But there's the pressure is not a stabilizer, right? Like it's just a stimulant. And stimulants always come with a crash, right? Like coffee, right? Like up, down. So here's the pattern, okay, that most people live in, whether they realize it or not, okay? And so I want you to listen as if I'm speaking to you in a personal conversation, right? They push, they perform, they hold it together until they can't. Then their energy drops, focus starts getting scattered, emotions spike faster, recovery takes longer, so they reset. New plan, new promise, new level of seriousness, and the cycle starts all over again. I'm going to take another word away from you, right? Like this is not inconsistency. This is over leverage. You're asking too much of a system that hasn't been designed to carry whatever that load is. And instead of adjusting the system, most people, point to yourself, right? Most people just double down on effort. And that's where collapse accelerates. So let's talk about what pressure actually does, because it matters. Okay. Pressure is going to narrow attention, reduce your flexibility, shorten emotional tolerance, and increase reactivity over time. At first, it feels like focus. Later, however, right, it feels like exhaustion. You know what I'm talking about. I know you do. I see your facial expressions, right? So eventually, it feels like resistance. Oh, right? Even to things you want to do. I want that so bad, but I'm resisting it. And it's not laziness. It's a system that's protecting itself. Right? It's like, I don't want to do that because I know I got to ramp up, right? I got to be all in until I just collapse. And then I'm going to have to do it again. And then I'm going to have to do it again. Right? So one of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is this, right? People think that collapse means they weren't committed enough, right? That, I didn't, put it together right? Like whatever it is. The reality of it is that collapse usually means commitment was being funded by instability. All right. So you were, let me bring this back for you. Okay. So some of you go, huh? So that when I say your commitment was funded by instability, I mean that you're putting the cart before the horse, right? Like, so I'm super focused on this out here, and I didn't build, right, a stable system. I didn't clear my pathway effectively, right? And so I'm walking on, rocky ground. And it's not smooth sailing, right? Like it's bumpy. Okay. So in other words, you're borrowing from your nervous system. You're borrowing from your energy reserves and your emotional bandwidth. And borrowing always comes with what? Like a due date. Yeah. So there's another layer to this that doesn't get talked about enough. And that is that all this pressure, right? This pressure to perform, pressure to get to point Z without doing B through Y, right? Because seriously, like we're here at point A and we're so fixated on getting to point Z that, like we're trying to, how can I make B through Y shorter? And, guess what? The alphabet's the alphabet, right? There's nothing you can do about that. So pressure doesn't just affect your behavior. It affects identity. When consistency is driven by pressure, people start to associate growth with self-surveillance, right? They monitor themselves constantly. Am I doing enough? Am I slipping? Why can't I just keep this up, right? Like that internal monitoring is work. And it's expensive, right? Like, so even when behavior looks good from the outside, the internal system is deteriorating. And this is why so many capable people say things like, I don't trust myself to keep things going. I don't know why I fall off. I don't feel steady even when things are working. It's not a character issue. It's a lack of predictability. And without predictability, consistency has no place to land. So let me say that maybe a little cleaner, right? Consistency doesn't stabilize through effort. It stabilizes through reliability. And I mean reliability of energy, recovery, response, expectations. Because when those are inconsistent, effort has to compensate. And effort cannot do that forever. This is where most systems fail. They focus on what to do, the habit, the routine, the rule, but they ignore the question underneath it all. What does this system require from me every single day to keep it running? And if the answer is constant pressure, high alert, or self-negotiation, collapse isn't a possibility. It's a guaranteed outcome. So here's a reframe I want you to hold. Collapse is not proof that you cannot be consistent. It's proof that pressure has been standing in for design. And that's actually good news, right? It's actually good news because pressure is exhausting and design is sustainable. So before we talk about discipline, habits, or follow through, we have to talk about precision and building a system that lowers the cost of showing up, reduces friction instead of demanding more willpower, and supports your nervous system instead of overriding it. That's where consistency stops being a fight and starts being a function. Okay, so now that you understand why collapse happens, let's talk about what replaces it. Yeah? Let's build the precision living system. So up to this point, we've talked about why consistency collapses. Pressure replaces stability, effort replaces design, and eventually the system gives out. So now we're going to shift, okay? Because understanding collapse is useful, but it's not enough, right? What matters is what replaces it. So what replaces pressure? Precision. And not precision as perfection, precision as fit. Fit between how you function, fit between what you expect of yourself, and fit from what your system can reliably sustain. That's what the precision living system is designed to do. Now, the precision living system is not a mindset. Okay, it's not a productivity method. It's not a personality upgrade. It's an operating system. Operating system, a way of organizing your emotional behavior and physiological inputs so consistency becomes a byproduct, not a demand. So here's the core truth this system is built on, okay? Consistency does not come from doing more. It comes from removing what destabilizes you. What happens is most people try to build consistency by stacking habits. This system works the opposite way, right? It asks what needs to be predictable, what needs to be protected, what needs to be refined, and not all at once, not aggressively, precisely. The precision living system is made up of 4 interlocking pillars. Excuse me. Right? These aren't steps. They're not phases. They're pillars. They are always active. They work together. And when one is missing, the entire system compensates, usually with pressure. Okay? You got that? So this is a system. For those of you who've worked with me for some time or are engaging, right, and work with me, right, you're learning, right, like your boundary system is a filtration system. It works in you. It works with you. Right, like we build these systems that become part of our way of being, our way of experiencing living, okay? So this system, this precision living system is made up of 4 interlocking pillars that are always active, working together. So we don't leave one at home, okay? That's when that pressure is gonna, okay? So pillar 1 is predictability. Now, predictability is where stability begins. Not calm, not control, predictability. Predictability means you generally know how your energy behaves. You understand your emotional range under stress. And you know what recovery looks like for you. And your system isn't constantly guessing. Your nervous system does not need life to be easy, my friend. It needs your life to be legible. When your system can't predict what's coming next, effort skyrockets. And that's why people feel exhausted before the day even gets started. Predictability isn't about routines for routine's sake. It's about reducing uncertainty where you can, so you have capacity where you can't. This is why January's work matters so much. You're not building habits. We're building reliability. Now, pillar 2, right, is devotion. This is where discipline gets rewritten. Devotion is discipline without punishment. It's the difference between I have to keep this up. I'm committed to how this supports me. Devotion answers one big question. What am I willing to protect consistently, even when motivation drops? Now, most people associate discipline with pressure. So when discipline shows up, rebellion follows. Devotion doesn't trigger rebellion. because devotion isn't about proving anything. It's about personal alignment. And this is where March's work lives. I know, right? I went from January to March, right? But this is where March's work lives. Discipline as devotion, structure as self-respect. Now, pillar 3, capacity. This is where emotional intelligence becomes functional, right? Capacity is not insight. It's what you, right? Like what you can handle without losing access to yourself. Capacity includes how quickly you notice activation. Capacity includes how well you regulate in real time, how efficiently you recover, how much emotional load you can carry without spilling it everywhere. Right? Most people don't need to be calmer. They need more room inside themselves, right? Like, feel it. They need more room. Need more room inside me. Now, this is why February's work is really critical. Okay. Because we're going to be learning about these emotions. Okay. We're going to be increasing tolerance and recovery. Now, pillar 4, refinement, right? Like this pillar is one that people skip, which is kind of evident about how I started this session today and the conversation we were having, right? Refinement is something most people skip. And the reason they keep starting over, right? Like, oh, it didn't work, throw it away. Or this doesn't feel good, throw it away. Refinement, my friend, is how stable people grow. Yeah, I love to consistently be refining my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, right? Like how I function, how I operate. I'm constantly refining what I hear my body telling me so that it's accurate, right? So it's right. This is how stable people grow. And it's not by overhauling their lives all the time, but by adjusting what's already working. Right? So refinement asks, what reduced effort? Right? Remember, we're adjusting what's already working. So what reduced effort? What increased predictability? What quietly supported me? And just as important, what looks impressive but costs me too much? Okay? Refinement prevents the collapse because it keeps systems livable. So here's how the system works together. Ready? Predictability calms the nervous system. Devotion stabilizes behavior. Capacity expands performance. Refinement sustains growth. If any pillar weakens, pressure is going to step in. And pressure is always more expensive than design. Okay, so you see, right? Like this system isn't about doing everything right. It's about building something that holds when life is real. We talk about that a lot, right? When life is real, right? When energy fluctuates, when stress hits, when our motivation dips, right? Precision living isn't about rising to the moment. It's about not falling apart when the moment arrives. Right, that's that. Sit in and move through. Like, ooh, this wasn't expected. All right. So as we move forward, I want you to shift how you evaluate progress. Not, am I being consistent, but is my system predictable? Is my discipline devotional? Is my capacity expanding? Am I refining or restarting? Those questions change everything. So now that you understand the system, let's slow down, right? Let's slow down and walk through how to use it day to day without pressure. So up to now, we've named the system predictability, devotion, capacity, refinement. But a system, right, only matters if you know how to use it or how to work it. Especially when life isn't cooperating, right? So this little section here is going to be more about that application, not optimization, not doing it perfect, right? But knowing what to look for, what to adjust, and what not to panic about. Yeah, okay. So let's start with something really important. Most people, right? They don't notice collapse as it is happening. Okay. They notice it after. So that's after your motivation drops off, after frustration spikes, after you stop trusting yourself. Right? So precision living changes that. It teaches you to read the early signals. So, yeah, right? Like as they're not wait for the full breakdown. So you're not so tunnel vision that when something's not hitting you on the side of the head, right? Like you notice, excuse me, you notice, you're aware, you may not know what it is, but you feel it, like, oh, something, right? Like I'm going to pay attention. So we don't wait for complete breakdown before we start utilizing our system. This is so that we learn how to read our early signals. So the first signal I want you to start thinking about, right, is rising effort. Right? It's one of the earliest signs that your system is drifting out of alignment. That things, and it's here that things start costing more, right? Your mental energy requires more, right? Like you got to have more mental energy. You've got to have more emotional negotiation. You've got to have more self-talk just to do basic things, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about with that self-talk, right? Like we got to talk to ourselves a lot just to get the bed made. Like you walk past the bed and you're like, I don't feel like it today. I'm just going to leave it there. Like, why? It takes 2 seconds. Just do it, right? Like, and now you're having all these conversations, right? So when effort rises, most people assume that they need to push harder. Precision asks a really different question, though. It asks, hey, what pillar just weakened? Hey, whoo. Because effort isn't right. Look, okay. So, right, like which of these pillars, right? Like just weekend, because that effort rising usually means that predictability has dropped off. So something became less reliable, whether it's my energy, my schedule, my emotional recovery expectations. Right? The solution is not more discipline, it's restoring the legibility. Okay. So the first signal is rising effort. Why all of a sudden does this feel more difficult? Okay. The second signal is emotional compression. Okay. This shows up as irritability, impatience, emotional numbness, or even emotional spillover in places it doesn't belong. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, this happened on my way to work, and now I'm going to bring that negative energy with me throughout the day, right? Like that's spilling over. People often, will give this, I don't know, the label of mainstream USA, right? Like being overwhelmed. But overwhelm is usually a capacity mismatch, right? Like, so you're holding more than your current system can process efficiently. Precision response, you don't overload everything, right? You don't offload everything. You expand your capacity or reduce the load, but you do so with intention, right? So to circle back around there, right? So right, the emotional compression, right? Irritability, impatience, numbness. So if we're sitting there and we're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, right? Like this is a capacity mismatch. It means, wow, I'm holding more than my system can be efficient in. So what I don't want you to do is just dump everything. What I want you to do is expand capacity or reduce the load with intentionality, right? And that's what we're going to be working on in February, right? It's not about calming the emotions, but building room for the emotions. The third signal is that quiet resistance, right? Like this one's real subtle. You don't explode, you don't crash, it's a stall, right? Like you stall, you avoid, you procrastinate, you feel strangely unmotivated about things that that usually matter, right? So this is often discipline turning into pressure again. Devotion got replaced by obligation. So precision response would look like, you don't shame yourself. You ask, hey, what am I asking myself to sustain that no longer feels aligned for me? Sometimes resistance isn't an avoidance, right? Like it's information. So the fourth signal is the restart fantasies. And this one is a really big tell, okay? It's thoughts like, I just need a fresh start. I'll do it differently next time. I should probably reset everything. That urge is rarely about growth. It's usually all about escaping friction. So refinement prevents the restarts. Because instead of tearing everything down, you just adjust one layer at a time. Stable systems don't need big drama to evolve. For some of you who've been around for a little bit, right? Like you've watched me do exactly these things that I'm teaching you here today, that I'm talking to you about here today, these pillars, these concepts, right? You've watched me do this over, I'm going to say roughly a year and a half to 2 years now, right? Because it was never about tearing it all down. It was, right? Adjusting one layer at a time so that my system stayed stable. Nothing was big, nothing was dramatic, but my goodness, did it ever evolve? Yeah. So, how do we use this system day to day? Let's talk about that, right? Like a simple way to apply the precision living system without turning it into yet another task. When something feels off, right? I want you to start here. When something feels off, don't ask, what's wrong with me? You now get to ask, which pillar needs attention? What changed? What became unpredictable? And this one I really like. What am I forcing instead of supporting? Then you just adjust one thing, not everything. Precision works because it's specific. Now, I'm going to give you the what not to do because it matters, right? So I want you to hear this. Okay? Do not use this system to monitor yourself constantly, right? Like, this is not personal surveillance. If you're evaluating yourself every hour, you're recreating pressure. Precision living is spacious. You check in, you adjust, you move on. You check in, you adjust, you move on. You check in, you adjust, you move on. No self-interrogation required, right? Like, please just stop. And this is a big reason why it prevents the collapse, right? Collapse happens when our signals are ignored. It collapses when pressure replaces design, pressure to perform, and reset replaces the refinement. Precision living interrupts that pattern early. So it's before burnout, before withdrawal, before self-doubt can even have the opportunity to take over. So here's the final line I want you to remember, okay? Write it down, push pause, whatever you need to do. Consistency isn't something you achieve. It's something your system allows. When the system is aligned, consistency feels almost boring. And boring is usually where sustainability lives, okay? So I'm going to take you through one final section, and because I really think it's important that we talk about identity. But I'm going to give you just a quick minute, okay? Okay, so identity, right? Not identity as a label. Identity as how you relate to yourself inside this system. So that this doesn't become another thing that you try and then abandon. So before we close, I'm going to slow this down, right? Not to summarize, not to review, but to integrate. Because systems don't become part of who you are through information. Right? There's a lot of smart people out there that have a lot of knowledge in their head, but the issue is they don't apply it. They don't utilize it in their life. And I know I've had this conversation with a lot of people, some of you in the room, right? Is if you come, you listen and do nothing, all you've done is give yourself some more information, more knowledge, but we don't apply it. And I think that's a large, problem with some systems or some programs, right? Or self-help or something is you learn a concept as it applied to somebody else, but there's nobody there to teach you how to add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph it, make it your own so that it serves you in your life, right? So systems don't become part of you through the information alone. Okay, so you've been listening up until now, right? But this isn't going to become part of you because you listen. It's going to become part of you through orientation, through implementation, through integration, right? So over the course of this session, you've likely noticed something. Hopefully you noticed something, right? Like this isn't about you becoming a different person. It was about understanding how you actually function and designing around that truth instead of fighting it. That's the shift. The precision living system is not something you do. It's something you operate from. Predictability, self-devotion, capacity, and refinement. These aren't goals. They're your reference points. They tell you where to look when something feels off without turning on yourself. So instead of asking like, why can't I keep this up? Right now you can ask yourself, which part of my system needs my attention? That's just that. Oh my God, just that alone is going to change how you relate to yourself. It's going to be less frustration, less self-surveillance, and a whole lot more clarity. This, my friend, is where identity comes in. Again, not identity as a label. Identity is how you position yourself internally. So here's the identity shift that I want to offer you. Very gently, very clearly, right? You are not someone who needs to be pushed into consistency. You are someone who functions well inside of the right system. And that doesn't make you fragile, it makes you precise. When you operate from that orientation, discipline stops feeling punishing. Emotions stop feeling like interruptions. And recovery stops feeling like failure. Progress, now that's going to stop needing the drama. You don't abandon responsibility. You remove unnecessary friction. So before we close, I want to situate this system inside the quarter that we're in, okay? Not as a promise, not as a program explanation, just as orientation. Because one of the reasons people feel unsettled in spaces is they don't know what's coming next or why it's coming in that order, right? January, February, and March are not separate themes, okay? They're three functions of the same system. Each month handles a different layer. So nothing has to carry the whole load at once, right? This month, all about predictability, not changing everything, not pushing forward, just stabilizing the ground, understanding how your energy behaves, where pressure sneaks in, what your system needs to feel legible. January is not asking you to perform. It's asking you to observe without fixing. February is going to build capacity. Because once predictability exists, we can safely work with focus, attention, and recovery. February isn't about doing more. It's about holding more without tightening, numbing, or burning out. Okay, this is where emotional performance gets trained real quietly. And then March is going to bring in that devotion and refinement. Not discipline as force, but discipline as personal alignment. This is where structure becomes self-respect and habits stop feeling like big obligation. March is about making the system livable. So together, these 3 months do something very important. They remove pressure as your driver. They build consistency from the inside out. And they give you a system that doesn't require intensity to maintain. So if any point this quarter feels slower than expected, just know that that's intentional. So intentional, right? Because this isn't about momentum. It's about stability that will carry the momentum later. Right? You don't need to rush this. The system works because it unfolds in sequence. Now, I want to name something really important before we close. Okay. If this work, again, feels quieter than you expected, less charged, less urgent, I just want you to know that's not a lack of impact. Okay. That's what happens when pressure exists in the room. Stability rarely announces itself. It just holds. So as you move forward, don't look for proof that you're doing this right. Right? Look for reduced effort. Look for increased predictability. Look for quicker recovery. Look for fewer restarts. Those are real indicators of change. And when things wobble, because they will, remember this, okay? You don't need to reset your system. Or I'll rephrase it. You don't need to reset a system that's working. You refine it. Okay? One adjustment, one recalibration, one moment of honesty with yourself. That's how consistency survives real life. So I'll leave you with this. Precision isn't pressure. It's presence. And it's presence practiced on repeat. So as we move in and through this quarter, right, the next phase of the year, the work will deepen, right? So Q2 isn't about building more structure, right? It's about being present inside the structure that we just built or you've just built. Right? Real-time regulation, moment-to-moment choice, emotional performance when it matters. That work only lands because of what we've already put into place, right? Like the work we're doing right here, right now. So for now, let's settle in. No rush, no action steps. Just notice how this reframes the way you relate to consistency. That's where change actually begins. See you in the rooms. Talk to you soon.